Good afternoon. How are you? Well, I thought I'd change my scenery a little bit. Not that I've been able to walk on my road so much, but there's a C&O path that runs parallel to the Potomac River and to tracks that come from West Virginia with coal, boo, going east. And it's a marvelous view, and I haven't been over here, and the greens are so green, and it's that time of year, of course. And there are no vehicles on the road, although I just heard a motorcycle. And it's mostly walkers and bikers, and right now there's just you and me. I thought I should say a couple of things about trials, which you may know, so bear with me if you know all of this. But one of the things, not just prosecutors, but trial lawyers say to a jury, particularly naive people who've not been exposed to it, is that the evidence comes in like you're putting together a puzzle. And there's a whole picture, and people are encouraged to see how the parts fit. And so, for example, you might get a testimony by a pecker. Hey, he must have had some child life, huh? So you get testimony by a pecker, it shows the big picture. But then, how do you cement it? Meaning, how do you prove it's true, it's corroborated, that it's not just a figment of his imagination? And the answer is that you introduce other witnesses, perhaps to mention the documents that he mentioned and how they can validate them. So, at the end of the day, what you tell jurors, if you're honest, is this takes some work, because you have to pay attention to the pieces, because they may help you resolve the difference between, is there a doubt or is this beyond all reasonable doubt? And at this early stage, it's a very solid case. And if the prosecution continues in this fashion, it should result in convictions, perhaps on all counts. The other thing we have to keep in mind is the gamesmanship that is a part of every case. And the way the gamesmanship works is that a person asks a question that they may believe are in good faith, and they may not be in good faith. And people have been exposed in my generation to Perry Mason. And he would get rid of a case, criminal case, in a preliminary hearing, and it would never get to trial. And there'd always be this Perry Mason moment. And Woody Allen and others have made a lot of fun of it. You know, somebody standing up and saying, "I did it," from the audience. And the truth is, those do happen, but very rarely. And a person who thinks they can hold back a piece of evidence, and when they put it in the courtroom, it'll make such a magnificent difference that everybody will just swoon and concede. But what you find is the thing that seems so strong, when you actually put it out there are often answers that you hadn't considered, obviously, or you wouldn't have used it in the first place. Now, I haven't seen anything of the latter, but right now we're moving into witnesses that will be more of the former, meaning putting in the cement that holds the bricks together in this house of accusations. Now, yesterday we were talking about the cross-examination by Emile Bove, who's taken over the cross-examination, at least for these witnesses. And Emile had asked Pecker about a document to refresh Pecker's recollection. But what Emile was really doing was trying to contradict him and to attack his credibility. You can hear the sound of the train, which is to my right. And the judge had a pause, because the judge suggested that the content of that document was nothing that could provoke a remembrance by Pecker. And the judge didn't go so far as to say you were misleading the witness, the court, and the jury by referring to something that could not refresh his recollection and that was no basis for asking him about it. Now, this colloquy with the court was done out of the presence of the jury. When the government had a chance to redirect, that is, to return and ask questions after the defense did, this document was put before Pecker, and he said he doesn't know anything about what's in that document. He can't vouch for it, would not vouch for it, and that it was not anything that he could confirm, sort of proving the misconduct, in my opinion, of Emile Bove, who should have known as well. When I was a young trial lawyer, one of the finest lawyers I ever met, Milton Gould, was defending in a securities fraud case, a defendant in that case. And I was second seating a quite experienced prosecutor, having been sworn in the day the trial was started. And on that day, they let me second seat this experienced attorney. And I was handling a witness, and Milton Gould, this great defense attorney, is leaning over the cart of exhibits I had, which was basically like a shopping cart, and it had in it files, Redwell folders. And it was like he was leaning over and looking at them while he was asking questions. I invited the court to invite him to step back, and he acted surprised. And in his cross-examination of a witness, he did the same thing that Emile Bove did, which is presented him with a comment that in the document in his hand contradicted what was being said. And I asked to see the document, and the document was withdrawn, and he said he withdrew the questions. So there are these, it's a trick, it's a misdirection. It is an effort to compromise the credibility of a witness when you have no right to do so. Now, it's ironic that they brought on another witness, a lesser but more important witness in a way, Rona Graff, who for something like, 30 years worked for Trump as his executive assistant. And what was she on the stand for? To talk about contact entries that she put in their files for Trump's paramours, including McDougal and Stormy Daniels. She was his gatekeeper for that extended period of time. And she remembered that Stormy was present at the office on the 26th floor, and that she also knew that she was being considered for The Apprentice show, which has been the discussion that supposedly became part of the settlement that is the subject of this trial, to keep her silent. So, you see, when you drill down this way, the story reveals itself. Very occasionally like Perry Mason, more often like other shows you've seen. By the way, you should see the movie Chicago 7 by Sorkin. It's an amazing story of the 1968-69 police riot against the people there, and then the bullshit trial they brought against some of the people. And Sorkin has such a skill with these things. It'll keep your attention no matter what you bring to it in terms of your preconceived beliefs about that trial. Now, in other news, we had an interesting story. I think Biden didn't go on, it's train whistles. Biden didn't go before the New York Times or Wall Street Journal or Washington Post, but instead he went on Howard Stern this morning, Friday, and he announced there that he was going to debate Trump. Now, Trump doesn't remember how badly he did with Biden the last time. I don't know if it was pivotal, but it certainly pitched people toward Biden, given the contrast in Biden's sense of presence, meaning he was a presence, he wasn't intimidated, he had that fight that he talks about as a young man, and he carried the day, and so everybody's scratching their heads, and it was a way for Biden to make a statement and not get into 18 other issues that might eat up the one news point he wanted to make. So that was interesting. And Stern suggested some political advice. Why don't you just stand next to him and say, find me 11,000 votes so I can win? Which is to the point. Exactly is to the point. And more of this classic dialogue with a criminal former president, I think, will help us get to the winner's circle in the ballot box race. I don't know how you feel about Adam Schiff, but I've always liked him from the years I'd see him in green rooms and the positions he took and his participations in the impeachments and his heartfelt expression for America and what Trump meant in compromising what is our great heritage in terms of a democracy that he, Trump, would give up so easily because he only cares about himself. But here you have a former AUSA, federal prosecutor, and he was robbed. Now, there's no sucker punch here. They actually went into the garage where his car was, broke into it, and took his suitcase. So he had to show up at a formal dinner he was attending wearing a dress shirt and a vest, because that's what he had. On the other side of the news, among the things I care about are what are we doing to our environment, what are our exposures, why aren't we smart enough about how we handle ourselves medically. And there's a U.S. bird flu that has the echoes of early COVID, which is infecting cows. And you'd be wise, because those who are selling milk are not anxious to disclose and compromise their bottom line. And so you may drink milk at your own risk. And so now, if you're a vegan, this is not a problem. You're not drinking it already. But you might think about trying some oat milk or something until people start becoming honest about this, if you prefer milk. When I was much younger and became a vegan, I read John Robbins wrote a book about being a vegetarian. And he was the son of the Baskin-Robbins team, the Robbins part. And he said he decided that milk was not something he should have. And here he was, a kid that could have any ice cream in the world he wanted because they had so many flavors and so forth. So it's really not good for us. It may taste good, may bring us back memories of when we were younger. We may think it settles our stomach, but it's really not good for you. And it may not be safe right now because you have to rely on the candor of people who are going to be losing money if they have to put warnings out about their milk. So here I am on my C&O canal route and we do have a small chapel of trees. And tomorrow I'll be back at my own cathedral, and then we'll see you there. All the best. Bye-bye.